Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nello Reads channel. Our first ProRevenge story of the day comes from Top Desert Ace. Tow my car, try towing this. Info leading up to the revenge. So, a while back at my other job at an animal shelter, myself and a couple coworkers were talking, and one coworker mentioned that her son's car kept getting messed up in the student parking lot at his high school. So I asked why, and she said that apparently another student has it in his head that one particular spot in the student parking lot is his, despite there never having been assigned parking at that school. Now this kid, who I'll call Little Crap, has a tow truck. Not even one of those big flatbed trucks. It's a crappy little beater pickup with a tow hook in the back. If you've ever seen the movie Cars, think slightly bigger than Mater. Anyway, whenever someone parks in Little Crap's spot, he then tows that person's car out and parks in the aforementioned spot, usually damaging the vehicle in the process. Well, while my coworker was telling us this, I said, you know what would be funny? Parking the Bearcat in that spot and weighing it down. It'd be effing hilarious to see that Little Crap try and tow that big chungus of a vehicle. The chief of police was chatting with us. The animal shelter in my hometown is considered part of the police department, and officers will occasionally visit us every once in a while, and he laughed and said, I would love to see that. The revenge. So, to start, the state I live in, according to the laws, moving a vehicle a certain distance without the owner's consent and without proper towing permits is considered vehicle theft. I was told this story a few days later, so here's how it went down. The police chief placed a bait truck in the parking spot and set up a couple undercover units close by, and the truck itself was weighed down with a crapload of cement bags. My coworker said she was surprised the truck didn't collapse under the weight. Sure as crap, Little Crap shows up, sees the truck in his spot, and attempts to tow it away. Now, the plan was for the undercovers to come out and arrest him right then and there. What happened was that Little Crap did a burnout trying to move the truck. He was successful for a few feet, at least the bare minimum for a misdemeanor, and then the back axle popped out of the tow truck. The undercovers came out and arrested Little Crap. Camera footage was also obtained, which showed the roughly 100 other times he's done this, which, of course, only bumped up his charges. It's amazing to me how some people just think the world revolves around them and that consequences just don't exist. Like, how could you possibly think towing every car that parks in your spot, which isn't even your spot, is a good idea? If getting rushed by 10 cops and getting arrested doesn't teach him it's a bad idea, I don't think anything ever will. Our next story comes from prestigious issue 330. Terror neighbors make our lives hell. Returned the favor by getting them raided. As we found out that we'd be expecting not one, but two kids, we knew we had to move to a real house with more space. At the time, we were still living in a one-bedroom studio, one floor up from the ground floor. Its only entrance was the metal fire escape stairs. Not ideal for a pregnant woman, let alone to live with two small babies. So we found a privately leased house that was newly renovated and had all the rooms and a large garden we were looking for. Signed the lease and immediately collected the keys. As the owner drove off, the woman next door comes up to me, immediately demanding we do not make noise before noon as her boyfriend works nights and sleeps in and a whole bunch of other do's and do nots. So right off the bat, I knew trouble was incoming. As the house was fully renovated and not much had to be done, we were like, don't poke the bear. We'll do the things that make noise after noon. We moved in after 2 weeks and the whole street was warm and welcoming. Some offered help with anything we needed. Real kind people. They also told us about the neighbor we met previously. Nobody likes them. The boyfriend was a big bully and got into arguments with everybody. They were also known as radio pirates, as in illegally broadcasting on radio with all Dutch bangers. This music is just terror on your ears, which went alongside them partying Thursday through Sunday till 5 in the morning. Loud music, constant yelling, always drunk, etc. Really something to look forward to when moving in, certainly with two babies on the way. The partying began immediately. Full blast. Real classy for someone demanding to be quiet when D-bag boyfriend needs his beauty sleep. Then one night, my father-in-law came to put new grass in. He had his trailer parked at the back of our house, which is a public space. Not according to the boyfriend, though. No, that exact spot where the trailer, full with grass sods, quite heavy stuff, was parked was his spot, and we had to move the trailer. Not going to happen, as I was not planning to walk all the way around the house with the sod. He gets angry right away, and demanded I move it. I told him to go F himself. I was done with him already, then and there. I'm also a ginger, so besides having no soul, I do have a temper, which is always in check until you provoke me repeatedly. Anyone who knows me will tell you that you really had to make an effort for that to happen. We went on working, and the end of the day comes when my father-in-law wants to leave. He hooks up the trailer, and bam, there was D-bag, telling him off, yelling that it's his spot and he better not park there again or else. Mess with me all you want. I can handle it. But what you don't do is threaten my family. I ran outside and told him in no uncertain terms to back off or he'll be the sorry one. Total bluff on my side. I have that temper, but I'm not impressively built and have no hidden fighting skills. I do fight dirty. He backs off. Father-in-law leaves, and I go inside where I find my wife crying. She got scared of him, maybe doing something to her father and or me, and this is something we don't need right now. Combine that with hormones from being pregnant, and you can paint the picture. So I'm now even more pissed, but had to promise not to act on anything. I won't, dear. Not yet, anyway. Time went on without any real incidents, and then came the time my wife went into labor. It didn't go smoothly, and they ended up having to deliver with a C-section because daughter 2 was almost strangled by the umbilical cord. We had to stay 3 nights, excruciating nights, due to a lot of things. When we finally got to go home, our family had put up a big sign in our front yard welcoming the babies. The sign was already up for a few days prior to coming home, so our friendly neighbors definitely knew about it. But did they give a flying F? No, they did not. From the first night on, they started to party and broad-blasted their terror music. They started at noon and continued to until 5 or 6 in the morning. Classy. They also kept going for days, so it wasn't just Thursday through Sunday. It was all week long and the next. So we were broken, hardly slept. One of our daughters suffered from heavy cramps combined with all the noise, and her parents were at the end of their wits, so she cried a lot. And then I just had it. I researched some things on radio pirates. His large 5-meter plus antenna in his backyard was illegal in itself, but he used it to illegally broadcast on radio, which meant he had a lot of equipment to do so, which was even more illegal and can even get you jailed. At the very least, they could seize it all and fine him big time, in the 10 to 45K area. Now, I did not immediately turn him in, but was instead looking for another house to lease first. This is because I figured it wouldn't sit well with him, and I didn't like having a wife and 2 babies in the house alone during the day while I had to go to work. I hear you guys thinking, why not involve the police? Well, they are utterly useless in cases like this. We called once, and what they did disturbs me to this day. They rang their doorbell and immediately started off by saying we called them about noise complaints. Yes, you heard that right. No protection whatsoever. Just blatantly told them we were the reason they're there, told them to keep it down, and that was it. They didn't even follow up with us or anything. As you can guess, D-bag was now even more pissed and told me the next day, or yelled over the fence that separates our backyard, that I really should not do that again. A threat, yet again, of which I told the police. I didn't report it the first time, as I chalked it up to alpha male and heat of the moment. But without witnesses to corroborate, nothing could be done yet again. Some days later, I walked out the front door and he had just stepped out of his car. He came up to me demanding I cut back some of our ivy that grew on our side of the fence because it tangled in with his antenna. He would be gone for a few hours and I could come into his garden to cut back the ivy that grew through on their side. Then, a light bulb went on above my head. I told him politely that I would do it immediately. Why? because that gave me the opportunity to find out the make and model of this antenna and where the cables go to ascertain its signal strength. It also gave me a good view of the equipment he had through the window, so I could snap some photographs of it. This was the icing on the cake. In the meantime, we did manage to find a new home and already had signed the lease, so we would be gone in 2 weeks. Luckily, we only had to paint some walls for the girls' room, pack up our things, and move them to the other house. So, after I trimmed the ivy and collected my evidence, I went online that night to find out the proper channels to report a broadcast pirate, and which entity was tasked with catching said pirate. Turned out I had to call the telecom agency, but also the police. Wasn't too happy with the latter, but I remembered I have a nephew that works for the police. Officially, his area was immigration, but knew enough colleagues that could help us, and we could trust not to confront them again saying I was the one that sent them. That was extremely important for our safety when doing what I was doing. So I gave both the agency and the police all evidence I collected and pointed them to the frequencies he pirated so they could listen in. Then they started a neighborhood investigation. It wasn't really necessary, but this was to cover our butts to make it look like he got caught by accident, because they had an active investigation in our area. You never know what he can learn from legal documents and such. We asked them to wait with the raid. Yes, they raid pirates' houses, preferably in the early hours of the day because of his beauty sleep rendering him incapable of fleeing or hiding evidence, etc. We moved 2 weeks later and they raided him 2 days after we moved. All of his equipment, computers, radios, cell phones, and his car were seized. He left in cuffs, his girlfriend did too, for making a big scene and tried to interfere. All of which was live reported to me by one of my ex-neighbors who was really ecstatic about this. It turned out this wasn't the first time he got caught, but his third time. His car had no insurance on it, and his Ministry of Transport test failed. This would normally have no big consequence because he didn't drive it well rated, but they had the guy surveyed on for a week, and that definitely meant he was seen driving it while not having insurance and valid MOT. He was fined somewhere around 30,000 euros, went to jail for 12 weeks, and everything seized was destroyed except the car. His girlfriend had to do 40-some hours of community service. They had to sell the house, which made for very happy neighbors as they too were over and done with them. Like I said, I do fight, but very dirty. You have to really make an effort for me to get to that point. Over a year later, when shopping for groceries, I encountered them with the foulest of looks. If looks could kill, I'd be a smoldering heap of ash, but nothing more than that. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know radio piracy was really a thing before reading this story. Like, that's a really odd hobby to have. Anyway, I'm glad this guy got caught for it because he sounds like a nightmare to live next to. I also think it's pretty funny that this is the second story in a row that involves someone parking in someone else's, quote, parking spot. The third story comes from Renan003. Don't want to work on our assignment? Fine, neither do I. This happened a few years ago in college. I had a class about entrepreneur projects, and that semester was about building a business on paper. Basically, we had to figure out what the business would be about, how it would work, and how much money it would need and make. I did this subject in a different class, so I could have Fridays free. So I didn't know anyone there except for one guy. Let's call him Mark. So I teamed up with Mark and 3 other leftover people to be in our group. At first, things were working like a charm, since we only cared about passing the subject and didn't give a crap about our grades. We would each do a part on an assignment. We had to deliver assignments each Wednesday, and we still got max scores on them. Our grade would basically be based upon all our deliveries, plus some points on individual tests. Important info for later. It didn't take much time for things to go downhill. It reached a point on the project that basically we couldn't modulate the work anymore. The 5 of us would need to sit down together and brainstorm the next steps. More specifically, when we reached the point of how we would earn money with our business. Either that, or one person would do everything alone. My group chose the second option, and this would basically be happening for 6 weeks. On Friday, I would send a message to our WhatsApp group like, guys, we have to deliver X stuff on Wednesday. When do you want to meet? Saturday, no responses. Sunday, the 2 checks would turn blue, meaning everyone read the message. No response. Monday, I would send a follow-up message. No response. Tuesday, I would work my butt off and deliver it alone. Wednesday, 2 hours before the deadline, someone, usually Mark, would send a message, "Hey, how do you guys want to do it?" Which I would answer, "It's already done." And they would thank me and promise to release me from doing anything on the next assignment, which wouldn't happen and the cycle would continue. After 5 weeks, I was fed up and got in contact with the teacher. Her response was that it was too late to do anything now because she couldn't assign me to another group and she couldn't give me special treatment. But she told me to check my grades, because most likely I already passed the subject. I looked at it, and with my individual tests, plus what I had already delivered on the project, I got a grade high enough to barely pass the subject. This was kinda effed up, but all the individual tests and project grades were public, so I saw that no one in my group had passed. The closest one was Mark, but he didn't deliver one of the individual tests, so he would still need to do something to pass. I could then and there be the bigger person and say something like, "Guys, I already passed the subject, start doing something, or I won't do anything anymore." But I can be petty sometimes. On the 6th week, I didn't do anything. Wednesday arrived and Mark tagged me in the group asking if I did anything. I remained silent. Panic started arising. Group members texting me in private. I removed the blue scene icon from my WhatsApp and would read the messages in airplane mode, so they wouldn't see me online when reading, except for the group messages because they would see that I read them regardless of leaving that setting on or off, so I didn't read them. Apparently, when you don't do anything related to the project in 5 weeks, it's hard to figure out what to do next. Deadline passes, I go to sleep. Class was at nights, at distance because COVID. Wake up the next day, several name callings, assignments not delivered, and the group threatening to report me to my teacher. My answer was simple. Teacher is already aware, I'm not doing anyone's work other than mine, you can all go to hell. And left the group. At the end of the semester, only Mark and I passed. They got their crap together in the end, but not enough for the other deadweights to pass. Was the sweetest 6, grades here go from 0 to 10, 6 is the bare minimum to pass, I ever got. Mark never talked to me again, but it was for the best. Whoever invented group projects in school is the worst. I feel like this scenario, or something similar to it, is almost always what happens. At the very least, every group I've ever been a part of has at least 1 or 2 people that never have to do anything. But as for the story itself, that was some pretty smart thinking from OP. In his position, I really don't think I'd have the guts to do it. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and I'll see you in the next video.